So, when you look at your actions, with this knowledge that you are perfect, essentially, truly, deeply being perfect, it doesn't mean that we then translate that perfection. We can also look at how we act from that place of perfect and have some mastery or some intelligence in how we act. Perfect doesn't mean I just do anything. This is a misinterpretation of perfect. That in the knowledge of the perfection, where now is there a sense that someone can do something to me and I have to respond, and then there's this back and forth? You've lost then your knowledge of, you were saying, in the current. So as soon as you lose your knowledge, it will burn you somehow, overwhelm you, or however you want to say it. It will. That's the perfect design of it. We're so afraid of pain, but actually pain is also that which gets us to wake up and be a little intelligent in how we act. And we have the power to act in wisdom, act in awareness. Awareness first, then act. As soon as you recognize where you have caused pain, where you have caused burning to yourself or to others, because basically it's a sharing kind of thing. Your pain usually will be shared somehow. So as soon as you recognize that, clean slate, always bring awareness. It will always work for you. Again and again. Sometimes you need to learn the lesson 100 times.
I think in this case, this is my big one.
No, this is your interpretation.
But you know, some people talk about money issues or this issues. And
doesn't matter what issue it is.
This one is
absolutely.
This reacting in fire is my biggie.
Yeah.
That I never seem to be able to learn from. But if I look back at my life, the times when I didn't do it was when I had a very strong practice.
Exactly. You can't hold your anger because your nervous system is weak. And she just said exactly the same in the flip side. I don't react when my practice is strong. So meditation does strengthen you, even on a nervous system level.
Particularly, especially with that breathing you did this morning.
You do have, that's where practice, of course the revelation is the whole thing. So the revelation does not disclude how we manage this embodied, earthly, wonderful wonder. And not with criticism, but also with a certain expectation of ourselves. With wisdom, with this gift that we all have, what are we doing with it? Are we using it consciously? Not to blame yourself, but also to hold yourself at a certain standard. You said, I didn't have anger until I went to Switzerland. And the truth is, there's seed of every aspect of the human expression is within us. Every seed. The potential to murder someone is there. Every seed, because you don't have an individual personal mechanism, actually. What makes it personal is what seeds sprouted. Due to your condition, the conditions that you found yourself in. So it's not that anger came in Switzerland. Switzerland was the environment that allowed that seed to start sprouting. When the sprouts, like a tree, come up, they appear, or they do, they shade the divine vision. The divine vision then is now in the shade, and the tree is taking all the sunlight. Because the attention, the attention is on now the anger, the tree, the issue. Now you're going to say, I got to cut this tree down in order to let the divine vision be in the light. And this is where our difficulty is. How do you cut this tree down? And this is what So I'm now offering to you, you don't need to cut that tree down because that tree is what has grown. If you cut it down, another tree will grow in its place because that's the nature of this earth. It's constantly springing up trees, rivers, mountains, rain, sunshine, all of it is there. So when you realize that the divine light that you've had the sense of or the knowing of has not been lost. Don't you love it when you sit under a tree and the speckled light comes through? I would prefer to sit under a tree in speckled light. It's so beautiful than in the full light, in the full sun. I'm not a great sun person, maybe that's just me. Can anyone else relate to that? How beautiful it is on a hot day to sit in that beautiful speckled light. So what is beautiful is the tree and the light together. So what makes us angry is not the tree. The anger is the frustration that we can't see the divine light. It's the rigidity. It's the rigidity that causes the pain. Or another way to say it is the identification with it, that this is me here, small. The ocean of humanity, anger is one wave in the ocean of humanity. We could go for an hour now, each expressing one word. It's basically open the dictionary. That's humanity. All those words. So, and now I'm saying, I am angry. It's like saying the whole English language can be contained in one word. How can you contain yourself in one word? I am angry. And this is my issue. Now you've really buy yourself a coffin and just put your issue in that coffin because you really cement it now.
Is that what you're saying about when I said anger is my...
Yes.
Like people would say it's my, whatever, karma or whatever.
It's not yours, it's humanity's issue. But only focusing on so-called positive against negative is not going to go deep enough, to be honest. You have to see the whole picture. Because rigidity is in, I want the positive and I don't want the negative. Although, of course, we, knowing the whole, will invite the positive and tolerate the so-called negative. There is a flow, there is an acceptance. That's why I love this. The whole ocean of humanity. Where is there any my in that? My faults, my actions, my shortcomings, my weaknesses, my sensitivities, my conditions, my preferences. This is keeping the ice cube nicely frozen.
And this is, my question is, why with knowing this during a period of high stress did I not look after my practice as the priority?
Good question. It's easy. There's no why. Start practice.
So just start again.
Yeah, every time.
Forget giving myself a hard time.
This is what you'll, instead of rereading this page, you just go.
And I think I need to write it on a mirror. Practice.
Yeah.
Or have a
however you do it.
How's your practice going?
Why are you assuming you're so weak that you can't remind yourself?
Because I've seen it over 40 years.
No, again.
Another page.
Just keep doing it. Turn the page.
Anger, there's also love.
Anger is a product of trying to get love. Fear of death, which means fear attached to your individuality, your beginning and your end, is the seed. Fear of death, which comes only in the not knowing of love. In the not knowing that all is love, it has to be fear. That's the underlying. From fear comes desire. That's number one. First, desire. When that desire is satisfied, it can turn into attachment and greed. When the desire is frustrated, it turns into anger. So from fear comes desire, because what is actually the desire? The desire to know love. The desire not to stay in fear. So that's the levels, you could say. So underlying is the love. When one is attached, has attached their identity to this changing personality, the antagonistic or the harmonious identity, the ice cube, then there must be fear, because you have to fear that which will change. Unless you know the basis, you have fear. Without basis, you have only fear of death. Because what will be? There's no basis. I'm going to fall into an abyss or the unknown. So from fear, which is the desire for knowing love or God, however you want to describe it today, we're calling it love, truth, Sat Chit Anand. When it is not realized that the desire is for your love to know your true self, then it has to then sprout. That desire will now go into two directions. Anger, if that desire is not met, and if that desire is met externally, we know it's dissatisfaction ultimately. So it will, in that dissatisfaction, you have to hold on to it or make it more. Just try and secure it in a completely futile effort. We can endlessly talk truth, love, wisdom, Sat Chit Anand. This is endless. So when Lise said she's been here 3 times and yet she's still learning. I'm still learning. I'm still amazed. It's amazement. But it's not the kind of learning, it's not linear. It's a constant returning and returning and returning to the revelation.
I have a question about the suitability part. So to have some help about understanding that, is that just to have more boundaries, to have more centeredness, because there's a lot of things that when I see them, it moves me. And perhaps that's suffering of others or
So
love.
It is the clarity with which she sees it. Like I had said before, you have to see our conditions in order to see through them. So seeing your conditions, sometimes you act in accordance with those conditions and sometimes you act against your conditions. But when you see it, it's the very clarity with which you will know, do I want to get involved? Will it serve me? Because you cannot be of any service, as you are well aware, without serving yourself. If you are yourself muddied in your awareness, you'll spread that mud. With clarity, you bring clarity. So to me, she's expressed her clarity. She's seen her conditions. She knows she's out of her ordinary culture. In her neighborhood at home, she may act differently. But right now, she's seeing the relevant situation and knowing that she'll likely choose not to go with her conditions at this time, and yet she will still feel, because she'll feel sorry for that mother cat. But the one thing you can be sure about nature, the underlying definition of nature is that it's ever hungry. It's ever hungry and in the search of food. So whether you see it in a cat, or whether you see it in a CEO who arrives at work in a Rolls Royce with servants to open his doors. Nature is ever hungry. And you cannot fulfill that hunger externally.
And there's an additional extension of that is that not everybody makes it.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Not everyone
nature
is
too.
fed. Absolutely. Yeah. Nature also eats nature. Because what is nature other than it's food for itself? And that is how it is.
In traveling to Africa, we see predator-prey.
Mm-hmm.
It's alive and well, and that's how it works.
And that's how it works. And when we see it, whether in person in Africa or whether we watch on television, we've accepted that. I don't particularly like to watch a deer being eaten or an antelope eaten by a lion, to be honest. But I'm not doing anything about changing that. I don't necessarily want to watch it, and that's in answer to Yop's question. He has already brought clarity through years of meditation in his life, and he's now... There's a subtle difference between feeding your conditions and trying like hell to control everything to feed the suitability of your conditions, and in wisdom to also know what conditions will serve you or not. So we don't lose our discrimination and our intelligence, but we also know ultimately our limitations. So never shun the situations that come to you. You don't need to go seeking. There's plenty that will come. And use them as an opportunity, as she said, to expand your sense of self. Include it in you. Gudrun just sat with a friend who was passing, who has since passed, and it's a natural phenomena for family members to want to hurry it up because he's suffering, because it's what feels like suffering when you look at someone whose body is starting to deteriorate. But we don't know what these other realms are to the waking state mind. So the waking state mind of logic and all the duality that we have described thus far, this is a limited view, because the filter is nicely bolted down, through which keeps the attention grounded in the physical, in the logical, in the rational, in the scientific, in the measurable, in the form. You start to undo a few screws. And then you watch that filter starts to get a little less effective at holding you down. That's what I was saying about kids. Kids want to take a drug, powerful drugs, blow that filter for a time. And it can create also a psychotic episode where I'm God. What are they saying? Oh my God. That's not right that they say they are God. Put them in hospital and you're a human being. But there's also an aspect that is just blown open. So we call the waking state calls it dementia. The waking state calls it death. The waking state says it's suffering. The waking state says that those kittens are suffering. This is all with the filter nicely bolted down. So I said to Gudrun, as she was with her friends, and not only with the friend who was passing, but as a mentor and wise influence for the family members, because their attachment is, he should die soon. Why isn't it, because we don't want to see the suffering. But it just it's not how the filter presents it always. There's dimensions and dimensions and depth beyond what this waking state presents. That's the mirror. The mirror is infinitely vast and reflective. Waking state is one pattern. that comes in front of that mirror. It's quite a complex pattern. So we have to see through it to understand ourselves in a deeper way.